Hey guys, Golf Nerd here. I've had some requests recently to do a final review on the Residue hybrid hitting mat. That's the mat that I'm standing on right now. I've been using it for about 8 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. The very first thing I want to say right off the bat, if you're just looking for my final thoughts after using it for a period of time, I love this product. It's been fantastic. It's wearing great. I have no concerns whatsoever. So if you're only looking for a quick review, that's it in a nutshell, and you can go on to your next video. However, I have learned a few things about both this product, how to get the most life out of it, how it should be set up, and I've got some additional details. So I'd love for you to stick around for the rest of the video so I can share those details with you. The first thing I want to cover is a pretty big mistake that I made when I first started using the mat. I started using it with just regular plastic tees, and I would stick them into the turf in the same location. So I'm using a Mevo Plus. The Mevo Plus says, hey, tell us how far you are away from the ball, and mine's set at 8 feet. So I had it marked on the floor to show where the 8-foot line was, and I would just continuously push that plastic tee in. Well, I was pushing the pointed end of that tee all the way through the backing of the Residue hybrid hitting mat, and I ended up creating a line where I was perforating the backside of the mat. I'd recommend you don't use regular tees on these mats. If you really want to use one, just cut the end off so it's a blunt end, and when you put it in, just put it in firmly enough so that it's stable, but I wouldn't push it through the backing at all. A much safer way to go is to use either a burr tee or like a Checkmate Tee. I just did a review about the Checkmate Tees. I'm a real fan of these. The burr tees are available through SimTurf.com, the same company that supplied the Residue hybrid. So you can get both of these. Either one is going to work so much better than a tee. First off, you're not going to have to try to find tees that are flying all over the place. But because they just sit right on the turf, you don't have to worry about am I damaging the turf. This type of tool is going to give you the best longevity, the most bang for your buck. And certainly we all want to get the most out of every dollar. So I'd highly recommend that you not use a regular tee and you use some type of tee like the burr tees or the Checkmate tees. The next question I've gotten quite a bit is about residue being left on the clubs. And I'm just going to grab one of my 7-irons. So this is just a random club to grab off the wall here. There is absolutely no residue on that. If I come a little closer to the camera, you can see there's nothing on there. So there hasn't been any residue whatsoever from the Residue hybrid. What I will say is, after talking to Chris Duff at SimTurf.com, he explained to me that as the turf starts to wear, you will start to see some residue form on the bottom of your club, and that's really an indication that the turf is getting to the end of its life. So when you start seeing that residue form on the bottom of your club, then it's telling you it's probably about time for you to change out that hitting strip or that hitting mat if you have a practice area, whatever your situation is. The next thing I'd like to cover is another question I've gotten about tendonitis. And how is the mat on your body? Is it causing any injuries or anything? Traditionally, I've had really bad tendonitis in my left arm. And when I was using the Monster mat, as soon as I made the switch to Residue hybrid, I noticed a difference. I mean, immediately. And I know I'm comparing to an old Monster mat design. I've had several people tell me I'm not being fair to the Monster mat, that it's been redesigned. And I apologize, because the only point of reference I have is a Monster mat that was, 6 years old, as I pointed out in the original video where I reviewed it. But when I would use that mat, within 30 minutes of hitting balls, I would start to get pain in my elbow, and it wouldn't go away. I mean, it would carry on for days. I haven't had any problems with my left arm. Now, having said that, in full transparency, I am having some tendonitis issues in my right elbow, but I've been working on trying to get my wrists more flat in the backswing, and I think this motion of trying to get my right wrist in more extension has put more pressure on my right elbow, and I think that's why I'm having some pain in my elbow. But in full transparency, I just want to mention it because I think the left arm for me is the most significant finding, that I haven't had this traditional issue that I've had with hitting off a match for the longest time. The last thing I wanted to mention was what SimTurf.com recommends when people set up a simulator like this. Now, I didn't do this. My setup is slightly different. Like I said, I'm using a Mevo Plus, and the Mevo Plus, in order, if you want to putt on a Mevo Plus, you have to putt right next to where you're hitting from. Well, if you try to putt on a Mevo Plus on a hitting mat, the surface isn't smooth enough, and you won't get good readings at all. The Mevo Plus is just, it's not the greatest at putting, but to have the best opportunity, you got to putt on a surface like this NP45 putting surface that is also from SimTurf. But it has to be right next to it. So my system or my setup is a little different than what I'm about to explain. What SimTurf recommends, though, is that you would buy a 4x10 Easy Tee hybrid mat, and then as the center strip wears out, or the center of it wears out, then just cut out that strip and replace just that strip in the center. And that way you can accommodate left and right players, and you can just have that center strip be your hitting strip. Now, I know some folks will cut a hitting strip right into their putting turf and just stand on the putting turf. But when Chris was explaining this to me, he said the reason we don't recommend people do that is the putting turf, the cost per square foot is quite a bit more than what the cost is for the Easy Tee hybrid. So you don't really want to wear out your putting turf and have to try to replace that. It's less expensive to just replace your Easy Tee hybrid mat or whatever mat you're using. The other point that he made about why you want to have a larger hitting mat than just a single strip and some putting turf is when you're standing on the mat, you want to be standing on a similar surface to what you're hitting off of. It guarantees that you're at the same level, that you have the same feels underneath your feet and where the club is striking. And that made quite a bit of sense to me. And these guys do a lot of custom, not necessarily installs, but they specify a lot of custom things, just like what you see here for me. So they certainly have a lot of time in the business, and I certainly trust their recommendations. So hopefully I've covered any questions or concerns that you might have, but obviously I respond to every comment or question that you leave. So please leave me questions or comments below. In fact, I use those questions and comments to figure out what videos to make in the future. You might have seen some videos where I'll start just like this one, where I said I've gotten some feedback and people are asking for X, Y, or Z, and I'll do a video about it. So not only do I respond, but it also tells me what type of content you guys are looking for. So go ahead, leave me a question, leave me a comment. When I see a trend, that tells me that there's an opportunity to produce a video to answer some questions for folks. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this channel, is just provide information to people to help them out. So if you leave me questions or comments, that way I know what type of information you're looking for in the future. Lastly, if you got some value out of this video, please hit that like button. It really helps me get my videos out in front of more people. And I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And that way, if you're leaving those comments and I do a video about that topic that you've asked about or left a comment about, if you're a subscriber, you'll instantly know that I've come out with some new material and addressed a specific question for you. Well, that's it for the Golf Nerd. Hit 'em long and straight, and I'll see you next time.